Hello and welcome to Unexplained Scotland. I'm Martin and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh god, he's going to talk about aliens again. Well, yes, but today we're talking about an element of ufology we have yet to discuss here on Unexplained Scotland. We spoke about sightings, we spoke about encounters, we spoke about attacks, we've even spoke about messages from intergalactic ambassadors, but we have yet to talk about alien abduction. And it is an alien abduction we're talking about today. With that said, let's get into today's subject, the A70 abduction. On the evening of August 17th, 1992, two friends were suddenly and unexpectedly thrown into the world of ufology. When they set out that night, little did they know they would soon be involved in one of Scotland's most famous cases of alien abduction. The night began innocently enough. Gary Wood was getting ready to leave his home in Edinburgh to make the 30 to 45 minute drive to the village of Tarbrax to deliver a satellite TV system to his friend Ian Phillips. High-tech stuff for 1992. Just as he was about to leave, his other friend Colin Wright arrived. Gary has a lot of friends. I guess that's what happens when you don't spend your life talking about aliens, cryptids and the occult.
Hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to...
Anyway, Colin decided to join Gary and keep him company on his short trip, a decision he would soon come to regret. They set off at around 10 PM. As they drove along the A70, Colin spotted something strange hovering above the road. He pointed it out to Gary and both men saw a strange craft floating 20 feet above the road. They described it as being a shiny black metallic disc-shaped object, 40 feet across and completely silent. Though it showed no sign of being aggressive, Wood was terrified. He said that he had the feeling that if he stopped the car to get a better look at the craft, something would run up and grab him. His words. He accelerated under the object, eager to get as far away from it as quickly as he possibly could. As he drove under the craft, a beam of light shone down from beneath it. The light that shone down covered the entire width of the road. The next thing Gary remembered was being outside of his car in total darkness. After that, Gary was back in the car, on the wrong side of the road, with Colin screaming, "Did you see that?" at him. Gary then drove at speeds of up to 90 miles an hour until he reached Ian's house. He knocked at the door and was shocked when Ian answered and asked him, "What took you so long?" It was now 12:45. The journey to Ian's house had somehow taken over 3 times longer than it should have. For weeks afterwards, Gary was troubled by terrible nightmares and at one point even woke up to find himself a mile away from his house. As he also developed severe headaches around this time, he went to his doctor and was given a CAT scan. Nothing unusual showed up. Gary had slowly come to terms with the fact that something very strange had happened to him and his friend on the A70 that night. Something that they could not remember. He convinced Colin to join him in several sessions of hypnotherapy. The men went to Helen Waters, a qualified hypnotherapist, to undergo hypnotic regression therapy in an attempt to unlock what had happened in their collective hour or so of missing time. The story that was slowly revealed by Gary through hypnosis was shocking. Gary described that after his car went under this strange craft and its light, the car suddenly stopped and he felt as if he was being electrocuted. He then remembered 3 small humanoid figures approaching the car. Gary had no memory of leaving the car, but the next thing he knew, he was in a room, presumably on the UFO above. A large humanoid figure, at least 6 feet tall with grey translucent skin, spoke to Gary, while the smaller beings worked around him. It seemed to be trying to comfort him as it said, "I've got a life like yours, but different." Strangely worded, but Gary took this to mean, "I'm not a monster, don't be afraid of me." He asked the alien creature what it wanted, and it replied, "Sanctuary. We are already here, and we are coming here." The comfort this extraterrestrial being tried to give Gary was well needed, as they next decided to subject him to some medical experiments. Gary was stripped and placed on a table. His memories get fuzzy here, but he remembers being totally paralysed. He saw 2 objects leading into his chest. He heard a strange humming inside his ear. Most terrifyingly of all though, he remembers a red-hot poker-like device being forced into his eye. During this whole ordeal, Gary had not seen his friend Colin, but he did see another human. He saw a woman also being subjected to medical experiments. He described her as being also naked, blonde, and in her early 20s. Gary then remembers a strange hole in the floor of the room. It was full of a sticky gel-like substance, and Gary could see something moving in it. Soon after, he saw a thin grey creature emerge from the gel. The next thing Gary remembers is being back in the car, on the wrong side of the road, with Colin shouting at him. As for Colin Wright's hypnotic regression, he has been a lot quieter on events than Gary, happier to remain in the shadows and keep his experience private. According to Gary, the hypnotist, and several other involved in the investigation though, Colin's hypnotic retelling of events match Gary's right up until the point they are separated. After they were split up on board the craft, Colin found himself naked and bound in a large perspex-like chamber. His wrists and ankles were tied. He said there were many other of these chambers in the room, with more people in them. He also remembers having some sort of red-hot poker pushed into his eye, and feeling as if his brain was swelling. He then remembers being taken out of the chamber and being dressed by what he called the wee aliens. He was then back in the car with Gary. Both men left their encounter with strange scars that they did not have beforehand. Hypnotic regression therapy has been a very controversial technique in ufology. Some say it's very easy to plant memories using leading questions and subtle suggestion. Others say it could be harmful to the subject's psyche by dragging out hidden, unwanted and painful memories. Gary disagrees, however. He is glad he underwent hypnosis to find out what happened on the A70 that night to him and his friend. He claimed that the sessions helped him understand what happened and, though the experience was terrifying, that he was in no real danger of harm. Apart from the medical experiments. After learning of his abduction through hypnosis, Gary Woods took up UFO research and became convinced of the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence in the skies over Scotland. He also believes the government knows about this and is keeping it under wraps for their own interests. In a classified document released by the British government in 2012, it was revealed that the Ministry of Defence took these men's abductions so seriously that they investigated it independently and filed an official report. The A70 abduction shares many similarities with other famous cases of alien abduction, such as Betty and Barney Hill, Travis Walton and Whitley Schreiber. They all feature periods of missing time in an abductee's memory, strange medical experiments being performed on board a spacecraft, and alien beings of similar, if not exact, descriptions. Tall, thin, gangly, grey, with large heads and eyes, and smaller counterparts that seem to do all the work for them. Seeing as Colin and Gary saw other humans on their unplanned visit to the UFO, could these cases and many others be connected? And what happened to the other abductees that they saw on this craft? Were they too returned with a gap of memory missing? Still, to this day, unsure of what happened? And what did the aliens want with this pair? What were the strange medical experiments in aid of? Surely after all these years of reported alien abduction and experiments, the extraterrestrials know what humans are and how we work. Rather than the experiments being for sheer research, which by now the aliens must have in abundance, what if they are trying to extract something from the subjects they take? What if the aliens are harvesting DNA, plasma, stem cells, bone marrow, and whatever else they need to create some sort of alien-human hybrid race? It's a theory that has been suggested for many years to explain the continuing reports of alien abduction and experimentation, and would certainly explain the reports that still come in to this day. Okay, so what is my hot take on the A70 abduction? Gary and Colin were definitely taken by something on the A70 that night. The missing time, the scars, and the hypnotic memories that were regressed.
Don't know that word, carry on.
Definitely speak to alien abduction. The similarities as well to so many other famous cases and even lesser known ones, there's just too many similarities. For me though, it's not the abduction or even the experiments that I find really interesting about this case. It's what the tall alien said to Gary. When he said, "We are already here and we are coming here," I think that says everything you need to know about UFOs and aliens on Earth. Aliens, extraterrestrials, are not going to invade Earth. They're already here, and they have been here for a long time. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm glad we finally got to a proper alien abduction. This was kind of one of the big things we hadn't covered yet. It seems like a good time to do it as well, as we just passed the 1 year anniversary of our first video, The Gurning Man. This has been a really cool thing to work on for a year, and it was something we didn't really know if it was going to take off or if anyone was really going to like it, but the support has been great, and yeah, we just kind of kept making them, and we're going to keep making them. In fact, our next episode is going to be something very special. Something interesting we found out about the A70 in the village of Tarbrax, which I assume I'm saying right, is that it is very close to Livingston and Decmont Law, where of course the Livingston UFO encounter happened, which we covered in a previous video. From Tarbrax, it's pretty much a straight line right to Decmont Law, where the Livingston UFO encounter happened. This also makes me think that the abduction happened very close to, if not inside, the Falkirk Triangle, which is of course Scotland's UFO hotspot. This cannot all be coincidence, and I'm telling you guys, I am so close to blowing the lid off UFOs in Scotland. If I disappear, keep researching this. When the Men in Black get me, the show is going to be run by Laura.
Oh, God.
One of our future episodes, I think I'm going to cover the Falkirk Triangle and all the strange stuff that happens in it and around it, specifically because we've mentioned it in so many episodes, you know, like the Bonnie Bridge episode, the Livingston UFO encounter, obviously, this one has a connection. So much things seem to happen in this area, close to it, around it, that there's some sort of weird synchronicity happening here. If you want to keep up with me, I'm currently on Instagram and Twitter, posting about Unexplained Scotland and a whole bunch of other stuff. Until next time guys, stay safe, stay spooky, and keep an eye out for the alien-human hybrids that walk among us.